Beatles and the Stones. What else was there, until like 67, and then you had San Francisco. But you had to travel a long way to see a good rock and roll band.
Imagine a recording studio bathed in amber light. An aging Eric Clapton sits alone with his guitar, fingers tracing familiar patterns across worn frets. The room is quiet except for the whisper of memories that refuse to fade. At 80, what stories might he finally be ready to tell? The 1960s, a revolution of sound and color. The Beatles and the Stones ruled a kingdom built on electric guitars and youthful rebellion. In this whirlwind era, three souls became entangled in what would become rock's most fascinating triangle: George Harrison, Eric Clapton, and the woman they both loved, Pattie Boyd. But what if the story we've been told for decades isn't the complete picture? What if, after years of silence, the truth behind the music is more complex than we ever imagined? She emerged like a vision from the London fog. Pattie Boyd, the model who captured George Harrison's heart on the set of A Hard Day's Night. With her golden hair and enigmatic smile, she became more than just a wife to a Beatle. She became a symbol of an era. But what happens when a symbol must also be human? When the spotlight creates shadows no one is allowed to see? Consider how history might look different through Clapton's eyes. The young guitar god who fell desperately in love with his best friend's wife. The man who poured that forbidden desire into Layla, perhaps rock's most passionate confession. What might he say now about those days? About the price of that passion? "I wrote those songs in a storm," our fictional Clapton might reflect. "I was drowning in feelings I couldn't control. Heroin, alcohol, obsession. I told myself it was love, but was it? Or was I chasing something I thought would save me from myself?" The public saw a fairy tale, the beautiful muse who inspired masterpieces. Layla, wonderful tonight. Something. But behind closed doors, what complexities might have existed beyond these perfect melodies? When Pattie finally left George for Eric in 1979, the tabloids celebrated rock's most dramatic love triangle reaching its inevitable conclusion. But what if that was just the beginning of a new chapter filled with its own storms? Could it be that two creative souls, both haunted by their own demons, created a relationship as volatile as it was passionate? One where inspiration and destruction walked hand in hand? What toll might fame take on a relationship built in the spotlight? What happens when a woman is forever seen through the prism of the art she inspired rather than as a complete person? In the complex landscape of rock mythology, perhaps no one carries a heavier burden than the muse. Forever frozen in lyrics, yet never allowed to speak her own truth. What might Clapton reveal if he decided to finally tell his unfiltered story? Not the romantic version that sells records, but the human one. Complicated, messy, and impossible to capture in a 4-minute song? Perhaps he would speak of moments when the music stopped. When fame and adoration couldn't fill the silence between two people who had become strangers, despite sharing everything. The emptiness that echoes when applause fades and you're left facing each other across an emotional chasm. For every sublime note on Wonderful Tonight, were there countless unrecorded moments of disconnect? For every public appearance as rock royalty, were there private battles neither was prepared to fight? The 1970s rock scene was a crucible that few relationships survived intact. Temptation and excess lurked around every corner. Trust became as rare as privacy. Could anyone have navigated those waters without scars? Now, decades later, what ghosts still visit Clapton in quiet moments? What might he wish to clarify about a past that's been mythologized beyond recognition? Perhaps the most profound revelation wouldn't be scandalous at all, but simply human. The acknowledgement that behind every legendary love song lies a more nuanced truth. That real relationships can never be as perfect as the art they inspire. The real Pattie Boyd has shared her own perspective in memoirs and interviews. The real Eric Clapton has spoken of his regrets and struggles with addiction. The real story likely contains no villains, only flawed people trying to find connection in extraordinary circumstances. If Eric Clapton were to truly expose anything at 80, perhaps it would be this: that the most beautiful songs often come from the most complicated places. That muses are never just muses, but complex humans carrying their own burdens. And that sometimes the most powerful thing a legendary musician can reveal is not scandal, but simple, unvarnished truth about the cost of creating art that endures. In the end, 3 lives became eternally intertwined through music that still moves us today. And perhaps that, not scandal or secrets, is the real story worth telling. What would you rather have, a perfect song or a perfect love? History suggests you rarely get both.